Hey guys, so here I am with another episode of things that tend to mess us up. And this is a list of common items and technologies that are in all of our lives, but because of the way in which we have to use them, interact with them, they can have negative impacts on our comfort, on our mobility, on our overall bodily tone. And because of those potential negative impacts, what I'm going to recommend is you either minimize your use of them or minimize your interactions with them or avoid them altogether in order to avoid those negative impacts. And what we're going to focus on in this video is the concept that began this whole series, and that would be treadmills. All right, so treadmills, what's the big deal with using them? Well, to understand the impacts that a treadmill may have on any of us, you simply have to look at what constitutes typical gait for a human being. Now, when we're walking about, whether you're walking, running, or sprinting, the way in which we do it is to push our body forward on the earth. The earth has to stay generally still, and we have to launch our body forward on it. And a treadmill flips the script, and instead we are working to stay upright, not fall on our face, while the world is moving underneath us. And this is something that never generally occurs, and if it does, then we have instincts to freak out, panic, stress a bit because something ain't quite right. And so the effects that you can have of moving in a gait-like fashion on your gait can be felt by any of us in the immediate period after getting off of a treadmill. Now, why is it that a treadmill can have such a heavy effect on us? Well, if we look at how gait is driven, you'll get a better idea. There is the motor component, that the act of walking on a treadmill is different than the act of walking and transporting yourself on solid ground. The other thing that is major is that gait, by and large, is visually driven. There are visual expectations when we are walking through an environment that a treadmill cannot provide, and so it's problematic, one, because it confuses a brain, and two, if you get the heavy amount of walking in your day on a treadmill, then you are robbing yourself of these benefits that come from experiencing the visual inputs of transporting yourself through an environment. So if we simply look at the muscles that are working when you're on a treadmill, we have to note that the research is a bit controversial because it shows that it's very similar, and at the same time there are differences. And if we simply look at the act of walking on a treadmill, common sense is going to show that it is different. You are trying to move and lift your body on a treadmill on a surface that is moving underneath you. You do not have to propel yourself forward, you have to prevent yourself from falling. Now, gait and walking and running, that is a controlled fall forward, but we must propel ourselves in a forward direction in order to get anywhere. So what will happen when you're on a treadmill is that you will have to take a little bit more of a nutcracker sort of gait, where you're flexing the limbs, reaching out in front of you and catching yourself underneath, as opposed to catching and launching yourself forward, similar to pushing yourself forward on a skateboard or a scooter. Gait is forward propulsion, and a treadmill isn't going to ask you to do that. A treadmill is going to allow you to mimic gait, but not actually do the full actions that require you to propel yourself forward on solid ground. Now, all muscle activity aside, the big factors that make treadmills not the best thing for us is the lack of visual optic flow that occurs when you're on them. Now, what is visual optic flow? This is something that I touched on in previous videos in this series. Visual optic flow is the experience of the world, your environment, moving past you as you are moving through it, in particular in a forward direction. Here we're stepping outside of the office. And when you're walking through, you should experience the world going past you. You're going forward and the world's going back. And when you're on a treadmill, that is not happening in the least. This is something that has been present throughout all of our species' existence. This is how we would walk through a field and observe what was going on around us. We had to be able to transport ourselves, but not look directly at the ground. We had to be able to study our environment in order to sight a predator or to sight a prey. If we had to be able to sight the people around us, we had to sight the environment around us, and particularly if we were hunting or foraging, you had to be looking at and around, not directly down. So the act of moving forward in an environment and being able to sense and experience the world going past you is walking, is running. And when you're on a treadmill, it will literally confuse a brain because it's expecting the world to move past you, and yet it's not. And this is a big driver of why it feels so odd to step off of a treadmill and walk around. That odd feeling, the treadmill effect, it will last for maybe 10 seconds for some and maybe a bit longer for others, but it does have its impacts. Now, the thing about optic flow is it seems to be very important for all of us in terms of just overall well-being. That experience of the world moving past us, being able to sense our periphery, perceive it around us, and as we move forward in the environment, we're not stuck in tunnel vision, we can sense the world going past us. This is an important part to allow us to de-stress, to relax. It has been shown that the perception of the world going past us, this optic flow, this visual flow, decreases activity in our amygdala. That is the fight, flight, or freeze stress center of the brain. So as we're able to perceive our environment around us and us moving safely through it, we relax. And if you're not going out, getting away from the screens that are in our lives, and moving through the world and perceiving the world going past us, then you're not getting that stimulation that seems to be very crucial and important, ingrained in us, and allow us to relax. Now, one of the options if you're trying to get some sort of walking and running in, and yet maybe you're wondering, can you get away with doing some walking on a treadmill? My best advice when it comes to getting in walking and running and general activity is to take the money that you would invest in a treadmill and buy clothing that allows you to endure different weather conditions and actually go outside and walk, even run in those conditions. If your priority is to maybe burn some calories and get some general activity, know that other forms of cardio, on a stationary bike, for example, a spinner bike, or even on a rowing machine, that is not going to be recognized by our brain as actual gait. And so doing those activities in order to get your heart rate up, get that general activity, it does not seem to have the same kind of effect as walking on a treadmill. A treadmill will literally confuse a brain, and so you want to favor walking and running outside for the effects that it has just on a general body. You can also get some other exercise via those different sort of machines or modes of doing it. Now the question could come up of, Noah, are you sure? What if I put the treadmill on an incline? Doesn't that kind of make me push myself forward? Doesn't that get some of the muscles in the backside that drive me forward to wake up? And the answer would be yes, you would have to drive yourself forward more in order to prevent yourself from falling on a treadmill. If you got a bit of an incline, you're probably going to feel it about a 5-degree incline or greater, and that can feel pretty aggressive. That will do something. But nonetheless, you will not get the visual optic flow that is necessary for us to reap the benefits that we need from Gait and in order to drive all of the motor patterns that are part of Gait. So because of the complete lack of visual optic flow on a treadmill, I'm still going to recommend you avoid them. Then the other question will come up, no, what if I spend a ton of money on a really great treadmill? What if I like really invest in some of these high-end ones? Is that gonna maybe give me a better effect than a cheaper one? And the best answer that I got to that is that now we're talking crack and cocaine. They both have their negative effects, but money really isn't gonna make a difference at the end of the day. So in summary, what I recommend is that you altogether avoid heavy or prolonged use on a treadmill. Get outside, take the money that you would spend on a treadmill or on a gym membership to give you access to a treadmill, and get the shoe wear and the outdoor clothing in order to allow you to walk outside in all sorts of weather conditions as close to year-round as you can. The importance of visual flow, optic flow, experiencing the world going past you as you're moving through it is critical to our well-being, and something that we evolved to experience every day of our lives, far more than most of us do in this modern day. If you are looking to increase your activity and just burn extra calories, then favor other forms of indoor cardiovascular exercise and still try to get outside and get some walking in for simply the effects that it has on our overall well-being. So this is one where I recommend you altogether avoid walking, running on a treadmill at all costs, or just know that the effects that it's going to have on you and still try to get in a fair amount of time walking, running about in the actual world.